Hello YouTube, this is Marco. Thanks so much for joining me for another video, another collection review. So let's roll the intro and jump straight into it. Alrighty, so let's just jump straight into the video. This is for Mike over on Instagram. His handle's Bazels_Bezels. I have that at the bottom of the screen. So be sure to go follow him on Instagram if you can. Taking a look at his collection from left to right, top to bottom, we're looking at a Datejust 41mm white dial on Jubilee, which he received from an AD. An Explorer 139mm Mark II, which I think is much better personally than the Mark I, no question. And 39mm is the perfect size for that watch, and I think for most wristwatches in general. He has a Datejust 36 two-tone yellow gold on an oyster bracelet. This one is very interesting because it has what's better known as kind of a tuxedo dial or a bullseye dial. And it also has a roulette date wheel, which is a scrolling date wheel. So on even numbers, it will be black, and on odd numbers, it will be red, which is, in my opinion, very interesting. He has a Tudor Black Bay GMT with a Pepsi bezel, very nice. A Bulgari Octo Retrogradi, which is actually quite an interesting watch. It has a scrolling, a jump hour, and also a wandering kind of minute hand that will flick back, I guess, to 0, and also a retrograde date, which, this is a pretty complicated watch. I think it packs a lot of punch, no question about it. He has a Belova surfboard chronograph, a Devon Tread 2 Godiva 44mm, a Tudor Oyster Prince Day-Date 36mm two-tone, an Accutron Spaceview 2020. This one is in 43mm. He has a Belova Millships Submersible, a Seiko Presage, a Zodiac Seawolf Blue Lagoon, and a Belova Surfboard Chronograph. So let's look at a little bit of the notes that he sent to me. He recently sold an Aventi, and he has a Tudor Black Bay Chrono Panda dial on consignment, so that will also be leaving his collection. He said next on the chopping block are the Tudor Day-Date, which in my opinion makes sense, especially since he now has the tuxedo dial Datejust. Ultimately, I think having both is a little redundant, although I will get into my suggestions very shortly. And he has he's also getting rid of the Spaceview 2020. I was actually a little shocked by that watch. I didn't realize, how expensive it was on the secondary market. We're talking about a watch that is, still a quartz watch, but it's $8,000 on the secondary market. So yeah, definitely, I don't blame you for taking your profit on that watch. I think that is definitely the smart way to go about it. He says he enjoys all his pieces, but he's open to ideas. Alrighty, so I think overall the main theme of this collection, or the main takeaway I have, is it's a very fun collection. I don't think it's one that you see, most people collecting. I don't think it's one that necessarily is meant to be taken so seriously. And I actually have come to appreciate that about watch collection, especially through your watch collection. And I'll explain to you why. When I originally made this review, I'll be honest with you, I kind of slaughtered most of your collection, especially kind of the two Belovas, the Seiko, and the Zodiac. And then I thought to myself, not every piece has to be a standout, high-end, super crazy, luxurious piece from a big brand. At the end of the day, I think it's actually kind of cool to have some watches that are kind of fun and not to be taken so seriously, and that ultimately you should just broaden your horizons, or at least I should broaden my horizons from that perspective. So very interesting collection, definitely something that's a little unique. But let's jump into kind of what my suggestions are. So of course, I would recommend you to get rid of both that Tudor Day and of course the Accutron Spaceview. I don't know if you necessarily need either. Again, the Tudor I think is redundant. And I think the Belova, well, I would just take my profit on that watch. When it comes to the rest of your collection, there are two other watches that I would recommend that you sell. The first is the Devon. Listen, it's not my kind of watch. It's just not my cup of tea overall. So it's not something I would necessarily keep in the collection. It's also not a small watch. I mean, it's 44mm, so I'm sure that thing has, pretty tremendous wrist presence. And again, it's a watch that isn't cheap. I mean, we're talking about something that sells on the secondary for, about 10, 12,000. So something that you can get into that is actually, I guess a little bit more reputable, maybe something from Omega, something from Zenith or the likes that you can ultimately put that money towards. So I definitely would say, I think the move is personally would be to sell that watch and get into something else, I think it would just be smart. And then the Datejust with the kind of tuxedo dial with the roulette date wheel, although I find it interesting, I don't know necessarily if you need it. Again, this is my personal opinion. You have a Datejust already, a kind of fluted bezel Jubilee bracelet, which I think is a beautiful Datejust. White dial, I think, is perfect contrast with your Explorer 1 39mm. I think that makes for a really good two-piece Rolex combo. So I don't really know if you need a third one, especially that version, since it is, kind of two of the same or similar watches, right? They're from the same model line, even though they're very different style-wise. Again, you can choose to keep it. Personally, I would sell it and put it towards something else. But that's just my personal opinion. I do find it a very interesting watch, and if you do decide to keep it, I wouldn't hold it against you. So those are all ultimately my recommendations, because it would for one free up a lot of cash, free up a lot of space in your collection, and overall I think you can get into some really cool, fun, and unique pieces that I think are being overlooked by a lot of watch collectors, especially in this kind of Rolex hype market where everyone is chasing the same kind of watch or the same looking watch. Now, I will be honest, I don't consider, the kind of Belovas and Seikos and Zodiacs as part of your collection, or at least your core collection. I think those are kind of your fun collection that you can just keep on the side. So I'm really going to be focusing on the kind of luxury pieces, if you will. So let's get into my recommendations. What would I get if I was in your position? This is obviously your core collection of what would be left if you did follow my recommendations. Again, putting the kind of more affordable things to one side. So we have the Explorer 1 39mm, the Tudor Black Bay GMT, the Datejust 41mm with the white dial, and the Bulgari retrograde. So what would I get? First and foremost, I think this collection is missing a couple of complications. I think it's missing a diver, no question, and I think it's missing a chronograph. And so that is the two areas I think that you need to fill a need in ultimately. And it's also true for your collection overall. You don't really have any kind of higher end, more prestigious chronograph, and you don't really have a higher end, kind of more prestigious diver. So I would say those are two of the areas that you need to fill a need. So starting with the diver, the one that I would ultimately recommend is the Omega Seamaster Heritage 300. I really like this blue dial. It's a sandwich dial. That faux patina is actually quite nice in person. Trust me, the pictures really don't do it justice. I think this watch is gorgeous overall. You get a display case back, a beautiful bracelet from Omega that has that push adjust clasp and the milled out clasp as well. So really good quality bracelet and clasp from Omega. I think it's top notch. That bezel is an aluminum bezel, but it's made from a higher quality material, so it's actually more durable and scratch resistant. And you can get this for about $6,500 pre-owned on the secondary market. Obviously, if you wait a little bit, you could probably get it for cheaper because this is kind of a relatively new release. But I think this is a knockout, sensational watch from Omega. Three-hand kind of wind and wear piece. Again, you get a display case back, beautiful bracelet, beautiful clasp. And you add that diver to your collection. You add a little pop of color because you don't have any kind of blue dial watches, which I definitely think you should be adding. I think this is a good, fun, year-round piece, also a very good summer piece. So I think this should definitely be part of your collection. Next would be obviously to fill that chronograph need. And the one I would recommend personally, again, because it's becoming very overlooked, is the Zenith El Primero. Now, there are a number of ultimately really good El Primeros that you can get. But I think the one I would recommend for you is the Zenith Open Heart. So the reason being is that you do have that Devon, and if you were to trade it out, it's kind of a cool kind of steampunk, if you will, type of vibe. And I like the fact that the Zenith Open Heart has that kind of open escapement, or the open view of the escapement that you can see. And it kind of adds that, I guess, steampunk flair. It keeps it in your collection, even though I wouldn't really say it's really a steampunk watch. It's really very much a classical watch. But I think the Zenith El Primero can be had for still tremendous deals. I think it's becoming extremely overlooked on the secondary bike watch collectors, and the price certainly reflects that on the secondary market. So I think adding a Zenith El Primero fills that chronograph need. Again, it's a gorgeous piece. I think it would be a great addition to your collection. And last but not least, I think that your watch collection needs maybe not so much a pure dress watch, but something that's a little complicated, if that makes sense. And the one I'm thinking of is really a calendar complication. And this is a watch I feel is arguably value for money wise, as good as it gets on the secondary market. I'm not just saying this because JJ is selling it, but I really do believe that the JLC Reverso Grand Calendar is one of the best bargains you can buy. I mean, you're getting a triple calendar in a reverso case. The backside actually displays that movement, which is absolutely gorgeous. You get a moon phase as well. I think this is such a beautiful and classical dress watch, something that's extremely versatile. You can definitely wear this, on a somewhat daily basis, no problem at all. It is a reverso, it's steel. I think this is a gorgeous piece. It would make for a wonderful addition to your collection because ultimately you're adding a kind of calendar complication. And what's great is the price. I mean, at $7,500, I really don't know anything that competes with it. I'm being honest. I can't think of anything from a major brand or from a kind of independent that can compete with the kind of value for money that you get from this watch. So I would definitely hit up JJ and actually buy this and take it off his hands. So this is what your collection would ultimately look like with my recommendation. So you keep the Explorer, you keep the Tudor Black Bay GMT, you keep the Datejust, and you keep the Bulgari. Again, I really think that it's an interesting complication with the Bulgari. Again, probably leans a little dressier than sporty. So you would be adding another dress watch with the kind of reverso, but you also fill that diver and that chronograph need that I think your collection is lacking. And overall, I think this is a very well balanced and beautiful collection. You have 3 black dials, 3 white dials, and you have a blue dial, which I think is such a beautiful watch, that Seamaster heritage. But yeah, I think this makes for a really well balanced collection that overall you get balance from your fun pieces, which are staying. You get balance from, your kind of higher end luxurious pieces. And all the recommendations I'm making are not crazy expensive, and they're all well within your kind of budget, if you will, if you were to sell off the pieces that I recommended, right? You wouldn't have to actually contribute anything further to your collection. You could probably buy all 3 of my recommendations just by selling off the pieces I recommended you selling. So that's my review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Mike, I hope you enjoyed the collection review, and I hope I did you proud. Of course, if you would like to submit your guys' collection for review, you can always do that to my email, watchcardinal99@gmail.com. Give me obviously a picture of your collection, a little bit of backstory. I'd be happy to review your guys' collection. But with that being said, guys, I'd appreciate if you hit this a like on this video, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Marco, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for joining.